Hola, Norte Americanos y amigos. Greg Patten, host of the Daily Spit Take. We talked about it in the preview of Lost Records. I gave my quick thoughts on it. Now it's time to actually review it since I've finished the game. And boy, do I have some thoughts about this game. Let's first start with what was the premise of Lost Records if you didn't watch the first part. Lost Records is about a group of girls in the 90s, 1995 to be specific, who want to form a Riot grrrl punk band, and it's the story of them being outcast and the supernatural happenings that take place that cause them to go on, shall we say, a Stephen King's It storyline, where now it is 30 years later, they have come back to the same town, and they're meeting each other for the first time since whatever incident the game is hinting at has occurred. The people who made this game are the people who made the original Life is Strange. Dontnod has had a great track record with narrative storytelling. I was a big fan of the first Life is Strange. I think Deck 9 did good jobs with Life is Strange 2 and Life is Strange After the Storm. Where I have had my issues with the Dontnod games is, although Jusant was an interesting climbing game adventure, and I thought the spiritual nature of that game was quite good, the gameplay wasn't great. And I think True Colors was the point where I felt, Life is Strange True Colors is the point where I felt I'm starting to lose interest in this. And I haven't played Life is Strange Double Exposure. I know a lot of people have enjoyed that. The critical reception to Lost Records, before I get to mine, has been kind of what you expected. It's a 77 overall on OpenCritic. I expected it probably was going to do a little bit better, and lo and behold, right before I started recording today, GameSpot gave it a 9 out of 10 and called it maybe Dontnod's best adventure. I totally disagree with that review, and I'm going to tell you why. I played the entirety of the first episode. I put more time into trying to get collectibles, trying to use the camcorder stuff until I just lost interest. And a lot of the points that I made in the first part are still not going to change because this is the slowest moving game of the bunch. And I know some people are praising it in that way for character development. I don't see it that way because I don't really think you get to know any of these people. They're all at surface level. The worst part is that Swan has such a low self-esteem of herself consistently, whether it's the modern day or whether it's back in 1995. The entirety of the punk rock Riot grrrl story is held down to getting to the climax of tape 1. I think the question that I have to answer for this is this game going to be successful? Will tape 2 tie up all the loose ends with tape 1? And are people so starved for these kind of narrative games that they're giving it a pass because so few games focus on 4 girls as the main story? You have to wonder at a certain level, the way that this game is being sold is if that is enough to get the kind of critical reviews that they're looking for. I think from a gameplay perspective, the worst thing I can say about it, unfortunately, now that I've played through it, and you'll see it in the footage I have, it has issues with the frame rate. It is frame pacing. It slows down at the weirdest moments. And then on top of that, I think working toward the conclusion, although it has some really cool ideals, it has some interesting ideals. And let's just get straight to the point. This is a spoiler cast. I'm going to talk about the ending. So if you haven't played it and you're interested, hey, I understand. It's on PlayStation Plus Essentials. You can get it on Xbox. You can get it on Steam. Play it first. Play the first part first, then come back and listen to me make these declarations about why I think this game is not as much, and it's not what I was hoping for, at least. All right. So now that the spoiler warning is out of the way, the twist is probably the worst in one of these games I've seen. I really don't buy into the empathy that they're trying to get for 2 characters who have just been complete dirtbags the whole game. The fact that they want you to feel sorry for them as the twist. You expect with what's going on with Kat, the youngest, the one who writes the song that conjures up the hole in the ground, that causes the abyss to appear. The abyss, the most interesting thing that was shown even in the trailers for this game, that happens over 7-8 hours of gameplay. Again, most of the game is you picking up stuff in people's rooms and looking at items. And there's some storytelling there. But when you want to tout that this is the best character development game of the Dontnod groups, my problem with that is everybody's so surface. We know so little about what is going on with certain characters. We only have the documentary one-on-one videos where they kind of lay out the storyline. They lay out what's going on. And man, I'm all for people championing their games. Like, if this is your game, that is awesome. I am glad. But as someone who's been a fan of these series, I feel like I can say that this is probably the slowest and the worst one of the bunch. And the reason it's the worst one of the bunch is they build on so little, from the camcorder collectibles to the editing of camcorder to the fact that every opportunity that you can see character growth in this game, they instead choose to change the subject. They dance around whatever is going on in the modern day. Maybe it's a plot device. When you get through tape 2, you'll know. But they also have a huge problem with the storytelling. From any time I'm about to find out something very important, the game goes in a different direction and says, well, we're not going to talk about that now. We're going to play pool. We're going to do something else. We're going to go on a nature walk. And I love that. I love the fact that you'll go on nature walks. I think it's a beautiful looking game, although it runs poorly on a base PlayStation 5, which I am playing it on. I've looked at the footage that I got. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I just wish it was better than that. If you're a person who had close friends, and it has been years since you had conversations with them, I think that this game will hit home for you. I think if you are in that 35 to 40-year-old range, this game is going to resonate with you, even though it doesn't resonate with me. I think that's the nicest thing I can say about this game. I like a slow burn. I like a series that builds. I like long movies. I do not like looking at 40 objects in a room and expecting me to be told that's character development because you have an Etch-a-Sketch and you have a toy that you can feed. There's not a lot there. You don't even get to know Swan's parents. You don't get to know anything about what's going on with her at school. At least with Life is Strange, like, I knew what Max and Chloe were doing. I knew what direction the game was going. I had a reason with the murder being investigated, with the killer out there. Even when the abyss is shown, all I'm thinking in my head is they're just going to do the Stephen King It thing, aren't they? Without Pennywise. I would not be shocked if the box that says, remember 1995, that the game wants you to be oohing and ahhing over at the diner or the bar. I'm sorry, it's a bar. I won't be shocked if you find out that it's a time capsule that they put and they set it up for someone to go dig it up. The fact that Autumn and Nora are the two characters who try and move the story along, because Swan just wants to stay there. She doesn't want to do anything other than stay with them because she doesn't have a life, it seems, outside of them. And Nora is obsessed with being famous. There is an eeriness to this game that they could capitalize on. The fact when you're out there and the glowing moths are happening. And you have the stuff that looks like it's of the occult with the mushrooms. Exactly where the abyss forms. I just think they don't do anything with it. They kind of half commit to the Blood Brothers ideal with cutting a finger, meshing their fingers together, and then one spit. It does get its capsule right of saying, oh, Autumn says she's not going to do it because she lost a cousin to HIV in 1995. Yeah, people were scared in 1995, still abide. Anybody who lived through 1991, 92 was used to hearing stories about if you didn't personally know somebody you knew did. So a blood swear, yeah, that doesn't really seem like a safe thing to do. I don't understand the choice that Swan gets to make at the end between throwing hair into the abyss or throwing a flower. Maybe it'll be answered in tape 2. But we build all the way up to get to this show at the exact same bar that you are modern day. And the way that this capsule is sitting on the table just reminds me so much of how in It, your mind had been erased by what went down in the sewers. Nobody had the memory of what took place in the sewer, and they were trying to remember. This feels exactly the same. But take away the monster. Take Pennywise out of It, and that's what you've got going on with this plot. And I'm being told that it's the best game they've made. No. There are plenty of things to do with the camcorder. In terms of searching out the world, in terms of searching out the graffiti. I would just use the camcorder during the regular gameplay. Maybe that's why it took me longer to finish this game than I probably thought it would. But I felt like that's what the game would be. I thought we were going down a Blair Witch Project lane because that also was huge in the 90s. And when the cabin showed up, I definitely thought that was the direction. I thought it was a smart touch. Again, there are things I like about the game. I thought it was a smart touch for them to set up a home base in the cabin. I just don't think they did anything with it in tape 1. They just let you clear it out, and they had like a Truth or Dare game, and then they set up the fact that Cat is going to go run out in the middle of the night to where the abyss is, and that's all they use it for. I think the fact that they want you to connect with the ideal of Swan only likes movies and she likes Stephen King books, and that's the character development. The ideal of finding VHS rental boxes back in the day laying around your room. There's just not much there. I think that they are intentionally wanting you with Swan to go in the direction of finding a love interest. I did not think that Swan loved herself, so I didn't think she could give love to another character. I didn't think it would make sense for her to be happy with Autumn, Nora, or Kat. I didn't think it made sense because she is always down on herself all the time. It is not until you get to the climax of the stage show at the bar that you realize people are being nice to her finally. And it's so brief. Like, you have the choice of, do you want to go glam? Do you want to go golf? And everybody's, oh, you look great. That is like the only tension that is really there the whole game. Even the whole Truth or Dare doesn't work from that standpoint. Especially when you go to the supernatural part where Kat wants to use her hand like in a Five Fingers game with the knife. She wants to play Five Finger Fillet, and you're just like, oh, no. This will not be good. But because at that point, once you can start to see the pink in the eyes, they've become kind of like a witch's coven, is what they're going for, it feels like. But they are not pushing on that. And so then You have the bit about the bullies show up both times outside the movie rental place, both times right by the ice cream shop. I know you can have different experiences when I looked it up because I was curious about, I never got the keys because the keys fell into the sewer and they never went down to the sewer. So they just totally wrote that off as, oh, it's okay, you lost the keys. But I did see that you could get the keys if you had put a barrier in place of where the sewer grate was, but I didn't bother to do that because I was filming all the time. So for that reason, I think they didn't really capitalize on the fact that I lost the keys. It just kind of brushed it off like it was no big deal. I kind of hope that's not the case they do with Swan's choice of throwing her hair or throwing the flower. I hope that both those have two different outcomes. I think it's a good-looking game. I can say that for it. But I also think that there is a lot of game that they could have done here. I think they could have made band practice important. I think they could have made some sort of bullying at school part of the story, maybe because they did the original Life is Strange. They didn't want to go down that path. I just don't feel that the bullying was necessary. It's a camcorder on a balloon. And that turns into you're filming me. And then you can either choose not to film or keep filming. And then later on, after the abyss happens, now you have the part with Kat where Kat's being directed. You need to come with me. We've got to go. And Kat's refusing because Kat just won Bikini Kill tickets for Riot Girl music. She's in a celebratory mood. She doesn't want to go. And you as the player can be as mean as possible as you want to her sister's boyfriend who's working on the same farm. And I don't see the point of like going back at him hard because all he's trying to do is pick her up. And then the game, in my opinion, totally drops it at the end. Because we get to the climax. I told you about the show. First, you have to go through the silly fuse puzzle game that, I mean, this is like the third game I think in 3 months I've played that had fuse puzzles that I had to solve. I did it in killer frequency once. That was enough. That was enough to do that with the fuse puzzle, but that was a much better game and a much better story. I highly recommend that game. It's still on PlayStation Plus Essentials as well. But you get set up for the show. And you're thinking, this is going to be the big moment. What is going to happen here? Are they going to open an abyss? Are they going to transport to a different timeline? Is there going to be a monster that comes out of the ground? Something. Because they play this show and they're possessed clearly. But instead, they play halfway. They're not as passionate. The people there are heckling them. And you're thinking, something's about to happen. And what happens is someone finally decides to pull the plug. And then Kat loses it and uses all of this energy that she has. You think she may be going Carrie or Firestarter here, to quote other Stephen King works. But instead, she collapses. Whatever it is that is inside her has caused her to collapse now. And this is the game's greatest mistake that some people seem to think is an amazing turn of events. You're the bad guys. Kat has leukemia. And you've been driving her and working her so hard, and she's been so passionate, and she's led you. And it's the two poor bullies, her sister and her boyfriend, who are trying to do what's best for her. And you get the heroic pick Kat up off the ground, carry her away, take her to an ambulance, and your characters sit there crying because they had no idea that Kat had leukemia. And they think this is a good twist. You've been bullied twice in the game by these people. And so the empathy is supposed to be raised. is what I'm guessing they're trying to get this point across. I don't have it for them. I just don't. I don't have it for the same way that Nora is completely vapid and narcissistic in the current day. If I was supposed to have a relationship with her previously where we were together, that wouldn't work. Autumn has children and is sidetracked by doing community service work. She's helping people who are going through trauma. If I had a relationship with her, that wouldn't make any sense either. Because then I would probably be the one who would be the one causing her trauma from the past. And this box sits on the table, not addressed. It's just sitting there. We're going to go play pool instead. We're going to go get drinks. We're going to have nachos. All of these things just to avoid getting to the point. And this is the best game they've made? A game where they had choices that affected the entire world? Games that were a commentary on what was happening with immigration law and the relationship of immigrants and families? This is better. To make you feel like crap because your characters have totally ignored this girl is sick. But you can also take another perspective. You could say, you're what's giving this girl life, giving her purpose. She's looking for an out. That's why she's created this witch's coven. But they don't do that. They have your characters cry. They cut away one more time to you standing over the abyss and holding hands, and then it's over. Soundtrack's great. I love those 90s shoegaze songs. They're great. It's one of the best soundtracks in a Dontnod game. You want to say that? I'm with you. The game runs poorly. It stutters all over the place on things, just picking up objects, which it shouldn't. Hopefully it'll be patched. But I just don't think the current time has anything to say. I don't need characters who are just going to look at their phones. Hold on, I got to take this. Hold on, my boss. You know, I'm famous now and my wife's famous and blah, blah, blah. It's going nowhere with what we're trying to figure out here. I think that we're putting a lot of hope, these positive reviews, that they're going to land the plane in the second tape. I think we're putting a lot of hope. I don't recommend it. I wish I did. I want to support these games. I keep coming back to the great director, Paul Thomas Anderson. Not the Paul Anderson who makes Resident Evil movies. That's not the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about the guy who made Boogie Nights, the guy who made Magnolia, made Inherent Vice, made The Master. There Will Be Blood. John Krasinski of the fame of The Office and A Quiet Place told a story where Paul Thomas Anderson was getting mad at another independent director whose name was never given, who was saying, yeah, I went and saw so-and-so's film and it was terrible. And Paul Thomas Anderson stopped him from going any further and said, don't do that. Don't criticize other independent films. If it's bad, it's okay, but don't say to other people it's a bad independent film. Because if we tell people independent films are bad, they'll stop making them. I think that's what's going on with a lot of the critical reception to Lost Records. We are in a very precarious position currently in the games industry. It's not fun to say. The Warner Brothers thing that took place yesterday where they laid off Monolith Studios, they canceled the Wonder Woman game as we all expected it would be canceled. A studio had 30 years, made Fear, made Condemned, made the Game of the Year candidate Shadow of Mordor. Hasn't made a game since 2017. Went through so many projects that were pitched and nothing was made. because management sat at the desk and thought, man, if we greenlight something, that's a bad idea. It's better just to pretend that we'll string people along and tell them they can keep working on concepts. So when I criticize Lost Records, I understand as an industry, as a medium, as a hobby, we want them to make more games. We want more narrative storytelling. We want more Life is Strange. We want more Until Dawn. We want more of these experiences. Even if I don't like Dark Moon Pictures games, even if I don't like the current Life is Strange games, I want more of these. Somebody is going to make something that is going to be jaw-dropping and is going to capture emotion, and this game was not it for me. And I am the perfect, when I say this, I love 90s music. I'm a product as a 1990s punk, hip-hop kid, DJ, electronic fan, drummer. I am all of those things. I played in garage bands. But this game did not hit the mark for me. The soundtrack did, but the game did not. And I understand the Paul Thomas Anderson philosophy. But I think I can say this was not a very good first part. Okay, before we wrap up, what I would like to do is I would like to throw cards on whether or not this game is going to be successful for Dontnod, and it's going to lead to further projects in the Lost Records universe other than just Tape 2 in April. All right, so I'm going to throw 3 cards here, and I'm going to tell you what I get. And these 3 cards are going to be relating to, does Lost Records have a future as a franchise for Dontnod? We already know that in April they're going to release Tape 2. So that's going to be the conclusion of this story. But is this going to be a successful new franchise for Dontnod Games? That is what these 3 cards are. So here we go. First card is the Moon. Second card is the Temperance card upside down. And the third card, is the Death card. All right, so what does this mean? The Moon card is about secrets. It's about things coming out, things being done in the background. It has a lot to do with the human experience of going through delusion and going through finding out secrets. The Temperance card, if it is upright, the Temperance card is all about the patience that it takes, and it's about your spiritual growth. It's about growing. The Death card is a new beginning. It's the end of something. It's straight up. So what do these cards say? This card says no. This card says no. This card says yes. So we've got 2 no cards that this will be a successful franchise for Dontnod. The Death card gives you hope because it is the ending of the way that Dontnod has been making games. And it says that there will be something new that will come along. Whereas the Moon card tells us that there is delusion, there are secrets being kept. The Temperance card is a no card reverse because it is usually about patience and growth, but it's upside down. He's pulling the cup into another cup. So this cup is ending up on the ground. So the answer right now would be, it will probably not be a successful franchise, but Dontnod will move on to new beginnings and have a better future. Well, that's going to wrap up the review for Lost Records, Rage and Bloom, Tape 1. Like I said, the final thoughts is this. If you like these kind of games, I wish I could recommend it. I can't. But if you have PlayStation Plus Essential, give it a shot just to see if it's for you. It's a slow-moving game. I don't think there's a lot there. And if you got through the spoilers and it still sounds appealing to you, good on you, but I would say that you definitely are waiting for Tape 2 to hopefully bring something together of a narrative that puts it all the pieces. I don't know how much more camcorder there will be in Tape 2. Maybe they'll have a new mechanic. I don't know. Maybe it'll be a Polaroid camera. But that's going to wrap it up for the Daily Spit Take. I have been your host, Greg Patten, And I would like to dedicate this episode to my mom, who is recovering from stage 3 lung cancer. And we will talk again shortly. Take care and keep your vibration high.